In the scorching summer of 1938, the dusty outskirts of Baghdad yielded a secret that threatened to rewrite all human history. Deep beneath the shifting sands, a German archaeologist was meticulously excavating the crumbling ruins of the ancient, forgotten Parthian Empire. What he found in the suffocating darkness of a tomb wasn't massive gold statues or cursed royal mummies of ancient kings. It was something far more terrifying to the established scientific world. A simple, unassuming terracotta clay pot, barely 6 inches tall. But as he carefully brushed away centuries of dry yellow sand, he noticed a dark, heavy asphalt seal completely locking the top. Breaking that ancient seal open revealed an absolute mechanical anomaly that simply should not have existed in the ancient desert world. Inside the clay neck sat a perfectly rolled hollow copper cylinder, crafted with a level of precision that baffled the modern mind. And nested directly inside that copper tube, held tightly in place by an ancient asphalt plug, was a heavily oxidized iron rod. To anyone with even a basic understanding of modern physics, the design was instantly and chillingly recognizable to the naked eye. 2 different metals, suspended in a container, isolated by an insulator, proving this wasn't just ancient decorative pottery left for the dead. It was the exact structural blueprint of a galvanic cell, an ancient chemical battery completely buried beneath the Iraqi desert sands. But there was one massive, undeniable problem that sent shockwaves through the entire global archaeological and scientific community at the time. This artifact was over 2,000 years old, created nearly 2 millennia before Alessandro Volta supposedly invented the very first battery. The implications were absolutely staggering, asking if the ancient world secretly mastered the terrifying power of electricity while Europe was still primitive. Were the ancient gods actually powered by hidden chemistry? And did the discovery of the Baghdad battery completely change everything we knew? The mere existence of the Baghdad battery ignited a massive, uncontrollable firestorm of wild theories and historical conspiracies across the globe. If these ancient desert empires possessed working electrical currents, it changed absolutely everything we thought we knew about our own primitive past. Imagine the dark, imposing stone temples of the Sassanid kings, not lit by the flickering, smoky flames of ordinary oil lamps. Instead, picture them bathed in the eerie, steady, mystical glow of primitive electric lights, projecting absolute divine power to the masses. Some historians boldly suggested these batteries were secretly used by elite ancient priests to electroplate thin layers of pure, shining gold. By coating cheap silver jewelry, they created seemingly impossible magical artifacts that demanded absolute worship and obedience from the common people. The idea is incredibly intoxicating, picturing a massive, shadowy, ancient altar room where hooded figures connect hundreds of these small clay pots. Working in a massive series circuit, they generated enough raw static voltage to make holy statues actually spark and glow in the dark. It paints a terrifying picture of a highly advanced, deeply secretive ancient civilization wielding the literal power of the gods themselves. For decades, the legend of the ancient Mesopotamian power plant grew completely out of control, fueled by our modern desperate obsession. We are addicted to the idea of hidden ancient knowledge and lost golden ages that were vastly superior to our modern world. The thought that we are just reinventing brilliant technology that was completely forgotten in the desert sands is a captivating, powerful illusion. But the scientific method is entirely ruthless, demanding physical proof over wild, imaginative stories told by enthusiastic dreamers and conspiracy theorists. Eventually, the glowing, mystical myth of ancient electricity had to face the cold, unforgiving light of the modern analytical laboratory. The time had finally come to put the ancient magic to the test and see if the Baghdad battery could actually shock the world.
To separate fact from wild fiction, modern scientists and electrical engineers pulled the ancient blueprints into the laboratory to finally test the impossible. They built exact, meticulous replicas of the terracotta pots, the delicate copper cylinders, and the heavily oxidized iron rods found in the desert. Following the theoretical ancient recipe, they filled the clay jars with acidic liquids that would have been easily available to the Parthian Empire. Using simple fermented grape juice, sharp lemon juice, or strong wine vinegar, they prepared the ancient chemical solution for a modern electrical test. And then, the absolutely unthinkable happened when the replica pots were carefully connected to a highly sensitive, modern analog voltmeter in the lab. The tiny metallic needle actually jumped across the dial, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that the ancient primitive design actually worked. These carefully reconstructed replica pots successfully generated a very weak but undeniably real electrical current of roughly 1 to 2 volts of power. The world was completely stunned by the realization that ancient hands had accidentally constructed a functioning chemical power source 2,000 years ago. But as the researchers dug deeper into the mechanics, the massive, undeniable cracks in the electrical myth rapidly began to show their true face. Generating a tiny, isolated spark in a modern lab is one thing, but powering an entire ancient civilization is a completely different reality. The battery's physical design is fundamentally flawed for long-term power because the iron rod is completely sealed inside by solid, impenetrable black asphalt. You simply cannot replace the acidic liquid when it runs out, making it an enclosed, single-use system that would die incredibly fast underground. Furthermore, despite decades of frantic, desperate searching across the Middle East, archaeologists have never found a single ancient wire or electrical conductor anywhere. There is absolutely zero physical evidence of ancient light bulbs, meaning the harsh, undeniable reality was finally setting in for the eager historians. Just because a simple clay object can accidentally hold an electrical charge doesn't mean the people who built it actually understood modern electricity.
If the Baghdad battery wasn't the beating heart of an ancient electrical grid, then what was its actual, true historical purpose? The ultimate answer is far less magical, but deeply fascinating in its own gritty reality of how ancient desert empires survived. Many leading modern archaeologists now believe these simple terracotta clay pots were actually built to protect the ancient world's most valuable asset. In the harsh, highly destructive climate of the scorching desert, fragile papyrus scrolls containing sacred texts or astronomical data rotted away quickly. To protect their knowledge, careful librarians would carefully roll the delicate papyrus inside a highly protective, hollowed-out copper cylinder. They would then place it inside the clay jar and completely seal the top with heavy, waterproof asphalt to keep out moisture. But over hundreds of years, the organic papyrus inevitably decayed anyway, slowly breaking down and fermenting in the complete darkness. It slowly transformed into a dark, highly acidic organic sludge inside the perfectly sealed ancient terracotta container over centuries. When modern explorers broke open the jars centuries later, they found this acidic residue and the heavily corroded iron rod. This rod was most likely used simply as a central stabilizing spindle to hold the fragile papyrus scroll perfectly in place. They saw a functional chemical battery only because they were desperately looking at the ancient world through the lens of modern technology. Alternatively, if it was actually used for a tiny electrical charge, it was likely just a cheap, manipulative ancient parlor trick. Imagine a cunning priest hiding a single connected jar inside a dark stone altar to give a tiny, shocking tingle to a worshiper. It was a simple method of convincing the terrified, uneducated masses of the literal physical presence of their powerful, unforgiving gods. The ultimate truth is remarkably simple, deeply grounded in reality, and completely devoid of glowing ancient wires or lost electrical magic.
The legendary story of the Baghdad Battery is the ultimate mirror reflecting our own massive, unavoidable modern arrogance back at us. We desperately want to believe the ancients were either primitive savages or magical alien geniuses equipped with forgotten, world-ending superweapons. But the historical truth is always much more complex. The Parthians were incredibly skilled, practical craftsmen, creating precise tools for their needs. They were surviving in a brutal environment, not trying to magically invent the complex foundations of our modern digital age. Yet, even as we completely debunk the myth of ancient electricity, we absolutely cannot ignore the terrifying reality of history. We must acknowledge just how much genuine, brilliant human knowledge has actually been permanently lost to the unforgiving sands of time. From the mind-bending, intricate analog computer of the Antikythera mechanism to the terrifying, unquenchable chemical fire of the massive Byzantine navy, human history is completely littered with unimaginable technological miracles that were violently erased by brutal war, religious fanaticism, and sheer time. This realization forces us to ask a deeply uncomfortable, terrifying question about the ultimate fate of our own massive, highly fragile civilization. Imagine a distant, post-apocalyptic future, exactly 5,000 years from now, when the dust has finally settled over our modern world. If our complex digital grid completely collapses tomorrow, what will future archaeologists think when they dig up our ruined, rusted cities? Will they find the decaying remains of our smartphones, server farms, and nuclear reactors, and truly understand our hyper-connected society? Or will they just see confusing, highly toxic metal garbage buried deep in the mud, totally misinterpreting our greatest technological achievements? The cycle of human civilization is a constant, absolutely terrifying loop of magnificent discovery, incredible arrogance, and eventual complete historical erasure. The Baghdad Battery may not have powered ancient lamps, but it shines a blinding, terrifying light on the temporary nature of humanity.